just, it's so wonderful to be here again. I've spoken with Morningstar in the past, and I just love any community with the intention for unconditional love is somewhere I want to hang out. So just grateful to be here. Also, you all are my tribe, spiritual Okies. I mean, you know, that's what I am. Sooner fans too, I'm sure. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. I'm super excited to talk to you today about my novel. I have to say I'm wearing the colors. This is the novel, the orange and blue are my colors. So I always try to do that to bring in the energy of those colors. I wanted to say too, Julia, my co-author, she's sad she can't be here. She's having some health issues, so I'm just sending her light around those. So I wanted to set up the novel first so you all kind of know what it's about. And so I'm going to just read the back cover copy. Akara is home to a civilization far more evolved than our own. Long ago on Akara, a planet in the Pleiades cluster, the ravaging era raged. It was a time of toxic greed, rampant warfare, and environmental devastation. Akarans were on the brink of extinction. Out of the turmoil, a critical mass of beings experienced an awakening, which sparked a spontaneous shift in consciousness across the planet and ushered in the rebirthing. 1,000 years later, Mobius, a candidate for the Discovery Corps, Akara's elite space program, stumbles upon an ancient relic. The artifact reveals that a rogue space commander from the ravaging era attempted to colonize the Earth. The legacy of his reign now places Earth in jeopardy, and Mobius is compelled to try to save the precious blue planet. He embarks on a quest that not only unlocks his secret destiny, but also points to the possibility of a mass awakening of human consciousness, a rebirthing on Earth. So that's a little about the book. And now I want to talk about how we can create that rebirthing. One of the ways that Akarans refer to this shift is with the expression, make the leap, which comes from their motto of their space program, the Discovery Corps. From data to information to knowledge to wisdom, make the leap. There are two other ways they use this expression. One is when they leap out of space-time and into the quantum field so they can travel faster than light and relocate across galaxies in an instant. And the other is that when they use the expression, like when we say break a leg or good luck. But today I want to talk about making that leap from egoic consciousness to awakened consciousness. Julia and I believe that we can experience this shift across the planet before we get to the level of devastation that Akara faced. I mean, obviously times seem really dark right now. The majority of people on the planet think that things are getting worse and that we're headed toward an inevitable demise. And the pandemic has really intensified this fear and division and making the perspective of negative, bias even more intense. From where we stand, it can look really impossible to emerge out of the upheaval and rampant unconscious egoic behavior before irreversible cataclysmic events take us past a point of no return. But there's another story and possibility going on, and that is where we all come in. And that's the possibility of a new Earth that Eckhart Tolle talks about. Amidst the darkness, a tremendous amount of light is coming onto the planet right now, and it's facilitating the evolution of human consciousness. If redirecting our trajectory required a linear progression of change among the human population, then the darkness, we would be like, we're doomed, but it doesn't. The great news is we don't need the entire human population to wake up, or even 51%, to have a profound evolutionary leap in consciousness and avert a continuing ravaging on our planet and emerge into a rebirthing. So there's a phenomenon that is seen across science, sociology, and metaphysics. When a small percentage of a population, a threshold is reached that creates a tipping point, which is also known as a coherence effect or a phase transition amidst the larger population. This is a point where a series of small changes or incidents become significant enough to cause a larger global change, a shift. Some examples of tipping points or phase transition in science are when there's a pile of iron fibers and a magnet is introduced to one side, only a small percentage of the edge of the iron fibers needs to be magnetized in order for there to be a tipping point to be reached, and all of the fibers become magnetized, even though they're not exposed to the magnet itself. Also with laser beams, only a tiny fraction of diffuse photons of light, the square root of 1%, need to become aligned in order to pull the surrounding photons of light into a laser beam and a much more concentrated, powerful form of light. And obviously, when water reaches a critical temperature, it transitions into steam, something from boiling to something light and free and much less dense. Right now, even amidst the appearance of darkness, we believe that a phase transition like this is happening and that we have a potential to reach a tipping point. Many spiritual teachers and ancient teachings point to a massive shift happening right now on the planet. And as we've seen, this looks like extreme turbulence. I mean, the world is such a different place than when I grew up. It feels like this instability is just like everywhere you turn. Like water just before it comes to a full boil, though, it looks like mass chaos. But then at a certain point, when the water's hot enough, the chaos shifts and what arises is steam, which is something of a completely different order. And this is what we're talking about. The egoic consciousness to evolved, awakened consciousness is just, it's consciousness. It's vastly different. It's vastly of a different order. And it's out of this evolved human consciousness that new leadership, ways of living, and technologies and ideas will arise to both eliminate and address the myriad issues that we're dealing with right now. So the quantum science of awakening plays a big part in the novel. In it, Mobius explains that on his planet, a quantum scientist found that individual consciousness affects the collective. Once a sufficient number of the wise ones realized their oneness, which the wise ones are the people who've awakened, the small percentage of people who awake to their true nature, a critical mass was reached, which created this coherence effect on the field across consciousness on the planet. The threshold for the evolutionary leap in consciousness on Akara was found to be 1% of the population. So the 1% threshold in the novel was actually inspired by large meditation studies conducted by the Transcendental Meditation movement. These studies show that 1% of a population meditating regularly, and even as low, and the number can even be as low as the square root of 1%, they've found, produced statistically significant decreases in crime rates, car accidents, and suicides, as well as increases in other social indicators of peace and harmony in the surrounding area. So we want to inspire and incite a movement where we can make this leap in consciousness, where we can arrive at a critical threshold of people on the planet who are awake to their true nature, which is love, oneness, and wisdom. So how do we do this? We awaken through devotion to spiritual practices, particularly meditation, which allows us to enter into the silent stillness, as well as bhakti practices, which focus on love and devotion to truth, spirit, and oneness. It's through these, as well as spiritual communities like this one. Coming together is so important for us to come together. It raises our vibration. Where two or more are gathered, it is a thing, it happens, and the collective is absolutely impacted. And it's in spiritual community, it's doing our spiritual practice that we discover our true eternal nature, which lies beyond our thinking mind, our physical bodies, and the external world of ever-changing experience. We also have to do our own personal shadow work that heals personal, intergenerational, and karmic patterns in the psyche. This is the cleaning up and growing up aspect of waking up. Ken Wilber talks about cleaning up, growing up, waking up. And we got to do the cleaning up and growing up of the egoic consciousness, of our past life material, of our intergenerational inheritances, and in order to wake up to the truth of who we are. The other thing we have to do is shift our focus away from the narratives of doom and gloom that we see on the news constantly, to focus positive, which is another term in the novel, not as some Pollyanna denial, but as consciously attracting more of what we want to create. At this point in history, we've experienced the same conflicts and dramas long enough to know that we're not getting anywhere with the old ways of being. We can choose to stop the madness and realize that there's another game, no other game on earth but awakening. That's it. That's what we're doing here. And when enough of us do, we can raise the vibration on the planet sufficiently to affect the whole. What kind of life possibly could await us after such a phase transition? Our minds can't fully grasp it, really, because it's like magic, like what people would have thought, in the 1600s, the Middle Ages, what our life is like now. It's magic, it's miraculous, and so much better. That is the kind of leap, but even greater, that we're talking about, because we're talking about energetic shifts, and the possibility at the energy level is endless. So there's no doubt that what it will look like will be a lot more like what Akara looks like after the rebirthing than Earth looks like right now. So we have really two missions for the book, and if you all look at our website, we'd love for you to see it, because there's a whole page about the rebirthing and what we're talking about here. And then our first blog is about the entertainment industry, because this is our other big mission, and that is to bring more light to the worlds of film, TV, and publishing. Currently, spiritual fiction is not even considered a genre. There have been, and this actually all ties together with the rebirthing and with the phase transition that we're talking about, this trying to change the entertainment industry and the publishing industry. Spiritual fiction isn't even considered a genre. There have been two books that have really made it big. I'm sure you've read them: The Celestine Prophecy and The Alchemist, that are spiritual fiction. There are very few films, like recent gem called Soul. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch the movie Soul. Avatar, Star Wars, The Matrix, these spark something in us. They expand our minds. They spark a higher consciousness. But dark egoic stories dominate publishing and entertainment, as I know you all know. And it doesn't take much to see the link between these stories that we've been telling and the world we're experiencing. George Gerbner, who is the former dean at the Annenberg School of Communication at the University of Pennsylvania, the top communication school in the country, says, "Whoever tells the stories of a culture really governs human behavior." He also coined a term called mean world syndrome, which is characterized by cynicism, hatred of humanity, and pessimism. And it's what happens to people when they watch the news, which is a negative storytelling machine. I'm sure a lot of you have sworn off of it to a large degree. But also the kind of TV and films and books that we've been exposed to more and more, which are filled with violence and basically the worst of humanity. We feel storytelling has been hijacked. It used to be people sit around the fire telling stories to uplift, to inspire, mythic stories of what we can become, who we are. And we want to return story to this place. We want to make it cool to uplift and inspire and experience profound spiritual messages while we're being entertained. I don't know why this is such a impossible concept. I've been thinking this has been my mission for so long, and it just seems like we've been going the other direction, except there are a few glimmers. This movie Soul, The Alchemist is getting made into a movie by Will Smith. People are really wanting to be uplifted these days. And Ted Lasso, if you guys haven't seen Ted Lasso, I mean, he throws in spiritual stuff in there, and it's just so uplifting and sweet, and it's a huge phenomenon. And this is why. Something we're going to have to overcome is our primitive brain. that it's a negative bias that our brain, that our reptilian brain goes to. Psychologist Rick Hansen says the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Our brain stem, the reptilian brain, is the oldest part of our brain, and that has evolved millions of years ago, and it's a fear-producing machine. It's designed to scan the environment for threat, and it is drawn to the negative and sees it everywhere. And we have to be aware of this tendency. We have to start to come into, it's like getting really clear on what is our stuff, you know, our egoic stuff, and then shining a light on it so that it can clear and shift, and we can make that intentional movement out of it. So we need to do our spiritual practices, our cleaning up, our growing up, so that we can have a deep and clear intentionality to overcome this survival mechanism that we needed in the past to survive getting chased down by predators, but we don't need it anymore. And we need to start moving into our higher mind. So another piece of good news that we've seen is this kind of leap in human evolution has actually happened before. The jump between modern human beings and our anthropoid progenitors, apes, was a huge shift that science can't explain, and only they have theories about. They theorize there had to have been some missing link somewhere, because it was such a vast jump between, like, we're apes and then all of a sudden there's like Homo sapiens, you know, and they don't know how that happened. So this is what we're talking about. There are actually examples in science of this kind of leap. So we want to catalyze and accelerate this in human consciousness. And to do that, we have to tell new stories and imprint our brains with different impressions. We cannot keep telling negative stories, imprinting our brains with negativity, and expect that we're going to go somewhere positive. It's not just about feeling better. It actually changes the wiring of our brain from reptilian and animal to spiritual. It engages the brain's neuroplasticity and what rewires it for awakening. So this is where you all come in. Julia and I and several people who have become massive supporters of this project, some of whom are on here, thank you, Pam and Dayna, in my meditation group, are holding a vision for this book to break down doors. And so there's something in the book called vital zones. The wise one create vital zones because the planet is so destroyed, that are spiritual, that are communities where they survive through this, but they also are zones where they're lifting the rest of the consciousness on the planet. And so that's what you all are. You're a vital zone. And so what we would love is if you read the book and you share it with others. We want to change. We want it to be so successful that it starts to break down barriers. Ted Lasso's doing this. All of a sudden, there's all of these copycat shows about that are positive and kind and sweet and about forgiveness. And this is the kind of impact that something that has great success can bring. So we'd love for you to read the book, tell others about it. People are just going bonkers about it. Honestly, it's been totally incredible. We have testimonials from truly amazing teachers like Jean Houston and Iyanla Van Zandt and Marcy Shimoff. And so, yeah, we just are asking that you get involved and spread the word and help us with this message. And so that for selfish reasons too, obviously the awakening of the planet, but also to see more spiritual entertainment, come into your screens and to all the book retailers out there, because I sure want to see more. I stirred in Netflix and I'm just like, oh my gosh, murder, rape, horror. It's just like, no. And so it's really, really challenging right now. And we want to change this and change the world in doing so. So thank you so much. I think, yep. Oh my gosh, 20 minutes. I'm so proud of myself. I really appreciate your time and just your attention and your light. I feel it, and I always have with Morningstar, and I'm just so, so grateful to be here with you. And please stay after with questions. I'd love to share more about the story that Michael promised. It wasn't part of the 20 minutes, but I'd love to share more about that story of meeting the being that inspired all of this, and yeah, chat with you guys a little bit more.